Yes, constitutionally speaking is on right now. And as we have been telling you all morning, we're looking at the topic, the calling of general elections in Jamaica. Wherever you turn in Jamaica right now, you can tell that we are in election mode. The campaign is on, with both major political parties going all over the island. And what are they doing? They are delivering speeches. They are critiquing each other. Their promises are plenty. You look and you see ribbon cutting here, grand opening there. You see inaugurations happening. You see goodies galore being given out or announced. And you can tell that an election is near. It is believed that it ought to be held by September of this year. And we are at the 8th of July already. So you know we're expecting an announcement anytime soon. In today's discussion, we'll be looking at things like who is responsible for the conduct of these general elections. An interesting one that Mr. McKenzie is going to be talking about is who can vote in the upcoming general elections. What about date constraints and, the way the law intertwines with that? How about how and when elections are called? These are matters that you ought to know about. And so we are very pleased that the Deputy Public Defender has once again consented to join us and to deliver all of these facts that are burning questions on your mind. And so we say good morning and welcome, Mr. Herbert McKenzie. Welcome to the program. How are you doing this morning, Herbie?
Good morning, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for choosing this topic. Very topical one at this time, Mr. McKenzie.
Very, indeed. Yes, as you rightly say, in the lead into the program, promises are plenty and lots of goodies giving out. And I tell you something, it's going to get more intense as the weeks go on.
I'm sure, yes.
Yeah. And in fact, what we have mentioned is that amongst the campaigning and the dropping of pandemic, there are lots of accusations, allegations, counter-accusations, and counter-allegations going on.
Mm-hmm. I hear them. I see them. And there's more to come.
No, this one that is coming up now will mark Jamaica's 15th parliamentary elections since independence. Prior to independence, we have had four. 1944, when we had the universal adult suffrage. Again in 1949, the JLP won both of those. And in 1955 and 1959, PNP won. And we went into elections. And our first one was in 1962. The JLP won that one. And Alexander Bustamante became the premier, taking over from Mr. Norman Manley. Now, under the Jamaican Constitution, elections are set for 5 years, for every 5 years. And they said Parliament shall continue for 5 years from the date of its first sitting, and then it shall dissolve or prorogue. P-R-O-R-O-G-A, big word, same as dissolve. Mm-hmm. So after the first sitting, after election is called and determined, 5 years after that sitting, Parliament is dissolved and another election is called. Now, the Constitution makes provision for that 5-year period to be extended up to 12 months if the country is actually in a state of war.
Oh.
In that case, Parliament can extend it for further 12 months, but not beyond 2 years. Now, I think everybody would have heard.
Sorry, is that the only exception then?
Yeah, that's the only exception.
Okay, thank you.
But there's a caveat needs to be issued here, because people would have heard some talk that the election date can go up to December. Legally speaking, that is true, because from the date Parliament is dissolved, on the 5-year date when it's dissolved, the election must be held within 3 months of that dissolution, of that prorogation. And 3 months from September will take us to December. And you hear talk that it can go to December. Legally it can. But in the absence of anything else, we normally stick by the convention and have it every 5 years.
Okay.
The last one was held on the 3rd of September 2020. So based on the convention of 5 years, the next one should be due on the 2nd of September this year. Now, let us look at who can call elections. The only person who can under the law is the Prime Minister. And An interesting feature about our Jamaican constitution and our election business is that there's a call for fixed election dates. And sometimes that call comes loudly from the opposition. When the opposition gets into power, the opposition is silent on that. And then the party who now takes opposition bellows loudly for fixed election date. But you see, the ability and the capacity to call fixed election date is a distinct advantage held by the incumbent.
Yes.
And you can use it to your distinct political advantage. So I'm just saying that to say that until we hear that coming from sources other than the politicians themselves, we would comfortably ignore it.
Yes.
Although it's ideal.
Absolutely.
No. Once the election date is called or announced by the Prime Minister, who we say is the only person who can call it, then a nomination date must be set. The nomination day is the date or the day on which persons are officially named as candidates vying for the 3 seats in the House of Representatives. And here are the dates that constrain the calling or the running of the elections. Nomination day must be at least 5 days after the announcement. That 5 days must not be on a Saturday, on a public holiday or a Sunday. If it comes after any of those days, then it's the next working day after. Now, after nomination day, the election day or the polling day must be not less than 16 and not more than 23 days after, which is after the nomination day. So let me say it again. 5 days after announcement must be nomination day. No less than 16 and no more than 23 days after nomination day must be election.
Okay. Noted.
The person who can vote are really Jamaican citizens over the age of 14 years and whose name appear on the voters list. In other words, those who have been registered to vote. So you meet those criteria, you can vote. Of course, you know, they're calling some quarters that people Jamaicans in diaspora should be able to vote. Counter narrative to that is that you can't vote for a government under which you are not going to subject yourself. You vote for a government and you disappear back to your place of domicile and leave us hearing it. The midpoint between that is a call that, fine, you can vote, but you'll have to be residing in Jamaica at least 5 continuous years before the election date. That sounds reasonable. In any event, the people who can vote are 18 years and older Jamaicans who are registered to vote on the voters list. Elections in Jamaica, not just general, local government too, all elections in Jamaica are actually conducted by the Director of Elections and his team. And the Director of Elections is that office was created under the Electoral Commission Act, and they are responsible for all elections, responsible for producing the voters list of voters ID, returning officers, election clerk, polling clerks, and a whole range of staff that they use to actually conduct and administer the polling. Now, a feature of our nomination day politics is that parties, the theatrics continue. One of the things you'll find that means that the parties or the nominees or the candidates, whatever you want to call them, pay their deposits using currency notes that bears a color similar to their party color, or use currency notes which have the face of their party stalwarts or national heroes affiliated with the party. Use those currency notes, no matter what denomination, to pay the security deposit.
How much is that? Now, do you have that to hand?
No, I haven't gotten it on, but it probably come to mind before I end.
Okay, no
worries.
If not,
I just mention it next week when we get on, because we'll be closer to election then.
Yes.
No, the problem with using the currency notes based upon the face of your political stalwart on it, it might be difficult to know with the new currency notes, because quite a number of them have images of faces of political stalwarts of the rival parties. So people might just resort to the color coding, for want of a better word. And also we find in the height, people decide to drink beer, which are bottled or contained in bottles bearing the color of their party. You find one side might want to drink Heineken, one side might want to drink Red Stripe, but the theater sometimes it goes to ridiculous levels. These are the nomination day, and the parties will nominate the candidate. Now, the money that they pay, which I'll soon tell you, and it's not next week, that deposit is returnable because it goes to the accountant general. It is returnable if the candidate wins more than one-eighth of the votes in his constituency.
Mm-hmm.
If you poll less than one-eighth, you lose your deposit. Now, this is 63 seats they're buying for, and it's first past the post. In other words, which party gets the most out of that 63? Right now, the ruling Jamaica Labour Party has 49, and the opposition PNP has 14.
Mm-hmm.
So the ruling party has its majority.
I just wanted to add here that the fee is actually $15,000 paid on nomination day when it's a general election, and $3,000 when it's a local government election.
Local government election.
Yes.
I had that sort of figure in my mind. I just don't know
Right.
whether it was 15 or 20, but I
Yes.
think you're dead right. 15.
Right. There you
Yeah,
go.
and
Thanks.
so if, for example, people are using the party with the color closest to the $50 note is the color closest to the PNP.
Yes.
Pinkish but close to orange, nothing comes closer. They probably will pay the $50,000 notes. So the people collecting might have some time
To count.
counting.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the $100 note might be closest to the JLP. It has a greenish bluish tinge, but nothing comes closer. So we might have that as part of the theatrics
Yes.
that goes on nomination day. We have had 15 elections, so 14 so far, and this is the 15th. And it's probably worth mentioning something about a couple of them, which were unique to each election. The one in 1962 was the first one since independence, after independence, and the JLP won. Another remarkable one was the 1980 elections. That one was the most violent election campaign up to then in our history. And that is the first time Jamaica experienced that number of murders in the country. It was just under 1,000. But of course, now that pales in significance of what we obtain in normal scheme of things these days. The next general election in Jamaica of significant historic note was in 1983, when the PNP boycotted the election, having had some issues with the voters list. And as it turned out by default, JLP had the seats in Parliament. Now, in 2011 elections, it was unique in that it surprised both parties. The JLP who won was pinching itself to see if it's real, and the PNP who won was slapping itself in the chest and the back to see what is happening if they are asleep or awake. Because they expected to win, the JLP expected to lose. So the 2011 result was almost like theater playing out. Now, we went through the 2020, just after COVID or in the midst of COVID, and now we're looking at 2025. Now, let me just make a little prediction. Well, it's not so much a prediction, but at the risk of taking me into the pundit sphere, I'm going to say, with the 5-day period between announcement and nomination day,
Yes.
and the 16 minimum, 23 maximum between nomination and election day, give us roughly 28 days. If you use 23 days maximum, 28 plus 5, 23 plus 5, 28 days, roughly a month. Now, with those time constraints, to catch this 5-year period, which clearly is what we're aiming, what is happening now, the election date will have to be announced by latest first week in August, so possibly late July. So I don't think we're going to pass the first week in August without hearing when the election date is.
Okay.
But otherwise, we're looking at December.
Yes.
Time is upon us. Under the turn of the clock, as usual, more and none.
Well, I tell you, I did throw it out to the Prime Minister just in case he was listening, that he could call us during the program and make the announcements. I saw my phone ringing, so I'm going to now investigate to see whether it was him calling me while you were on air with us. But thank
And
you.
I'll be listening.
Yes. Thank you for the information, Mr. McKenzie. We learned a lot this morning, and we wish you a great day today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Norton. Same to